can go live.
Perfect. So, very good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to session 2 of the FICCI Smart Cities Summit, Creating Future Livable and Sustainable Cities. We all have noticed this morning how passionate our secretary was about livability and sustainability of our cities. We happen to be the generation that lives in the first urban century, and therefore understanding the city should be reviewed in order to obtain sustainability and resilience, but most importantly, livability, the convenience of living, as we call it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it from the expert panel we have with us today. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Palash Roy Chaudhary, Managing Director, Smart E, Mr. Ashish Khare, Global Head, IoT and Smart Cities Wipro Limited, Mr. Parag Bhatnagar, Senior Vice President, Havels India Limited, Colonel Rohit Dev, Punjab Renewable Energy Systems Private Limited, Mr. Deepak Gore, Head Smart Cities and Urban Infrastructure, Siemens Limited, Madhukar Srivastava, Head Technology and Solutions, L&T Smart World. This session will be moderated by Mr. Srinivas Rao, CEO, Asia Pacific Western Global. Mr. Rao is also the founding member of Western Global Workplace Services and is considered a pioneer of professional real estate and urban infrastructure consulting services in India. So yes, we have who's who from the sector with us today. With this, I hand over the session to Mr. Rao. I'm sure you will manage the time well. Over to you, Srinivas.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining today. So smart cities and livable and sustainable cities. Probably the most abused words in the world today is smart city and sustainable. The word sustainability is spoken as if it is something that everybody speaks on the street. What is real smart, livable, and sustainable city is what I would like to know from this session. From the panelists, from the subject matter experts here, and each one of them brings a lot of value. We have Palash, who brings in a great amount of expertise on the mobility front. We have Ashish, who brings in expertise on the IoT front. We have Parag, again from a lighting front. We have Rohit from a Punjab from a renewable resources front. Deepak from urban infrastructure, and Madhukar again from technology and urban infrastructure. So keeping all of this in mind, a lot of us look at smart city or livable and sustainable cities from our own personal prisms. So to me, a smart city is a connected city. Everybody talks about, I remember many years ago when Government of India talked about a smart city, everybody said it's a city which is fully connected with internet, and that was the only thing that people talked about. So every time I go into some of these sessions, people talk about the common man on the street. For him, it's just internet. They don't talk about renewable energy. They don't talk about a lot of other stuff. So quickly thinking of all this, I thought I'll ask the subject matter experts on this panel about a bunch of things, and I want to make this very interactive, and I want a lot of ideas come out from this session, and I hope it works the best for all of you who are listening in as well. So the first question I was thinking of asking, actually, from a renewable energy perspective, and I have the best of the subject matter experts on the panel today. So from a renewable energy perspective, what do you think is the way forward for a country like India on the renewable energy front? And I'd like to pose this question, Colonel, to start with, since you are, a subject matter expert on this, and then I'll move the questions around to the rest of the team as well. So, Colonel, what do you think India should be doing on the renewable energy front?
Thank you, Mr. Rao. First of all, a very good afternoon to all, even the panelists and the viewers on this panel. Let me start by saying that India needs to do is have a vision. And while renewable energy needs a deeper vision, because it also includes an energy transition of sorts in the country. So the first thing to flag is the 50-year energy transition vision in our country. And that is where the renewable part will fit in. So let me give you a layman's word. You want to make electric vehicles, right? So electric vehicles will not come in a jiffy. So it will be a transitory phase. You can say PTC bus, all buses in Mumbai first, all government vehicles which are running within a city limit next, like that. Till such time your super expressways being made by Ministry of Road and Transportation, so communication, have those charging stations. Till the time your power packs become so light that you can change them on the way to Chandigarh. So that is what you're looking at in a transitioning manner. Similarly, for say the aircrafts, you suddenly can't be a solar, some PV voltaic cell kind of an aircraft which will carry nothing actually. So you have to see through now. SAF is a trans. Similarly, for your cooking appliance, cooking needs in the domestic sector, there is a transition happening towards gas. There's a transition happening towards LNG. There's a transition happening to many other fuels, including vehicles. You are thinking about 2G ethanol like Brazil. So if you see the overall spectrum, if you can map the 50-year vision, can then only you succeed. Otherwise, you will go by five-year and 10-year visions of a government of the day or maybe a policy maker of the country, and you will limit yourself. And this also calls for a deeper interministerial kind of a coordination. Because if you just heard me that last 1 minute, you will understand that these things are different ministries in a country who generally don't come on the same table to sit and plan for the future. So if the population of our country in 2070, it is now about 50 years from now, is going to be why, billions, 2 billions, 3, whatever billions we are going to be, what are the energy needs? Transportation sector, right from the aircraft to the bicycle, what do you want to make? You want to make roadways with cycling tracks or maybe walking paths. You have to envision every need. You have to say how many household kitchens will run, how many community kitchens, how many hotels, what kind of you have. So as you are able to map the energy needs of a country in the long term, I'm afraid in the short term these specific nuanced sort of portfolio changes do not work. And that is where I'm coming from. In renewable energy sector, you have to see a model, to see the nation grow into a model. I'll just give you an example, like I spoke earlier as well, was about a setup in Punjab where Patiala has been taken as a city for experimentation of RE. So the entire gamut from the vehicle, from the power grid to everything else in the city, the study is going on, and I'm part of the reviewing committee there. And they are looking at a lot of options to imbibe RE into a city first. Now, when you do that, your grid will be the biomass being used to produce a turbine-based electricity may not be near the city, so it may be serving 4 or 5 more cities. You will take care of the stubble burning as well. So when you see this entire gamut of what I've spoken, unless you have a vision, Rao and the panelists, you will not be able to take it right. Never, because if you say electrification, you may go to rural sector and put solar light today, but what is the transition? How does it connect? How good are our rural sector today in terms of smartness? No. So whether you say tube well, which is based on a solar pump, good. What more? Because you have to make sure that the rural community does not migrate in 20 years to Delhi and Mumbai only. So seeing all this, the energy transition also has to have a connectivity, a pan-India connectivity with the rural sector and the ultra modern urban sectors. So unless we can visualize that, we will have a lot of choices made in the interim, which will have some beneficial effect, but they will not be holistically tackling the issue of renewable energy or the energy transition in the years to come. Those are my initial thoughts. We can hear from the panelists and then we can take it on.
So interesting. So your first thought is, and I know it's a 50-year vision that we need to plan. We need to put together a plan for 50 years before we, if a country needs to move, rather India needs to move to renewable energy. That question in mind, renewable energy, it's just not power, right? We are also talking about water. So, I'd like to pose this question to Deepak. You are on the urban infrastructure side. And you represent a large organization like Siemens. So, Deepak, what are your thoughts on the waterfront? For us, somebody was mentioning earlier to me that the future world wars are going to be all about water. So, what are your thoughts on water? What should governments, just not in India, but across the globe, do on water and wastewater management and other things? Again, very important resource for the planet. What are your thoughts on that?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, the panelists. Water, I think, is life, as they say, and there is always a limited or finite amount of water on the globe. Coming back to the Indian situation, we are really blessed with a lot of rivers and a lot of rainfall, but most of the water goes waste because probably we don't capture it, we don't have the mechanisms to take care or store our water. Having said that, whatever water we store and then supply to the urban, rural, and all other areas, we have leakages to the tune of 40 to 70% in terms because of the way we are distributing the water, and there's no way to measure or monitor or track these systems. But however, I think technology has many companies have come out with new technologies where we can actually do this trapping. So, for example, in the state, in the northeast states of Arunachal Pradesh and others, where we have remote pumping of water stations. So, we are doing a project for putting all the pumping stations, a couple of thousand pumping stations on an IoT-based platform, bringing to a central headquarters, and then monitor and track the efficiency of water pumping and water distribution, the levels of water availability, etc., the leakages and stuff like that. These are some of the technologies which are anyway part of the 100 Smart City mission, where they talk of 24/7 water or wastewater, and a lot of water data, leak detection systems, energy monitoring of water, etc., are already happening, or a lot of this are being implemented in the cities. And this is one way to tackle what is in control. That is, you can control the technical losses, the technical leakages, and also bring a very good level of transparency in this. So one part of where the technology could be an enabler. Second part is the education of people. Naturally, we say that how can we reduce our own consumption of water? How can we conserve water? How can we conserve water bodies and what, which goes to the second step of it, which is more sort of a public awareness campaign or citizen engagement approach and those related topics. But still, having said this, there are a lot of technologies where we can uh, convert the sewage and waste and get water which is usable for non-potable purposes also, which is also happening with a lot of companies, a lot of towns and cities also, which happens. So overall, I think a lot of conscious and awareness on water as a scarce resource is there in India. A lot of effort are being made, but I think we're just still scratching the surface. A lot more needs to be done before we actually can proudly say that yes, we come to a stage where probably we utilize most of the water which we get. One more aspect, a hidden aspect in water, is the amount of energy which is used for pumping water and wastewater is enormous. It's really tremendous. Hardly anybody monitors or tracks the status of this, and it is actually a quite a double-digit percentage in terms of, if you look at the state's consumption of urban infra in terms of wastewater and water drinking, and this is all a waste. So you need efficiency in systems not only for water but also monitoring and tracking for all this pumping stations, sewage pumping, the automation part of this. So this is another hidden advantage or another hidden challenge which also needs to be addressed. A lot of companies are addressing, but again it goes hand in hand. The energy pump, basic used in pumping water, and basically conserving the water itself, and then making some reuse of the waste and sewage water which comes in. So all three aspects being covered in a certain way, there's a good beginning happening, but I think we still have a long way to go in terms of this. And technology can help to a certain extent. Citizens' awareness, probably the second pillar on which this needs to be done. Thank you.
Thanks, Deepak. You used the word technology quite a bit. So the next question is for Ashish. Ashish, this is right up your alley. How does technology help us build livable and smart cities? Sustainability is being the key element in all of this. So Ashish, over to you on this one. So how does a common man on the street understand what is technology going to help him from a sustainability standpoint?
Yeah, so Srini, if we talk about smart cities and if we say that connectivity or digital city or digital solutions is the end, somehow I'm not convinced on that. Smart city is all about a process to learn, map, be aware of, manage, control various parameters, and those parameters are man-machine both. Those parameters are each and every asset in a city. Energy, when we talk about, we can say that energy saved is energy generated. And that means that it is not about only the kind of source we are using, but also whatever resources we are having, how best we are utilizing. And this utilization is not only about managing leakage, are managing the say spend of energy in distribution or loss of energy in distribution, but also about how do we aware that what kind of waste we are doing and how use that. And this is where technology plays a role in measuring first at every point what is the energy made available and how same is used, and using this and making people aware that what an average uses and what they are using for similar purpose is the first thing which makes it good from a perspective of saving energy. When we look at these initiatives, we look at IoT kind of technologies to be used at every point to get this measurement done, get this right data done, and then look at how do we control certain things. Now, control is not only technology based; it is human based as well, and that's where we have to make citizen aware that what they can do and they need to contribute. Else, we are not far from that world war based on water.
Okay. So you're saying my understanding, Ashish, from this is that you are trying to indicate that citizen-centric cities and services are going to be the most important element in all of this. So, so my next question would be on the citizen-centric services. You know, how do you kind of work on citizen-centric services, and how do you build cities that are citizen-centric, that have all of this implemented? So Madhukar, for you, this question is to you: how does one build smart cities which have all of the citizen-centric elements built into it? I know you're smiling, but this is a question for you, Madhukar. This is right up your alley, so if you can
Yeah. So
tell us. um,
thank you, Srini. So, so before citizen-centric service and how smart city is going to help people, let me take example of recent pandemic where all these smart city, whatever has been deployed in India, how it has really helped people to government to manage the governance and do the right governance and then reach out to people and help them. So what exactly happened as soon as this pandemic started? I mean, every smart city command control center has been converted as a full-fledged war room. And all the government officers started managing the whole city by exploiting all the video management system, which is displays, conveying the messages of government, using the public address system. Even some of the what is called AI based services, like I was just mentioning other day, like started restricting people to go beyond a certain limit. Like in Hyderabad, we have implemented that people should not go beyond 3 kilometer of radius from the location they have started. I mean, they have their own house. So using the automatic number plate system, surveillance system, and then all the algorithm built in, we started generating alarm if some car is traveling more than 3 kilometer of the origination point. So by that way, a lot of crowd was controlled, a lot of traffic was controlled, and then the actual intent of what is called lockdown was implemented there. And some of the AI-based what is called application like mass detection, social distancing, and all those things. So basically, if I talk about in a smart city, why I mean how this citizen-centric services can enable it is, see, the most important rule is that unless there is a participation and unless there is a engagement of citizen for such implementation or such what is called concept, it is not going to get any success. So if you are planning the smart cities infrastructure and if you are taking all the inputs like what are the pain areas of citizen, there could be a pain area of heavy congestion, there will be a pain area of then crime rates, traffic violations, controlling the power, water, and other things. And then basic need, like you have to submit your what is called building tax, I mean, which is house tax, and you have to change the name of your property. So all these things, which is basically a citizen-centric services, if these are being driven from the perspective of that citizen is going to use it. So if you have a single application, suppose if you are having multiple mobile application, citizen may not be able to use it. So if you have a single sign off where all the services can be integrated, then with a single sign off mobile services, you can log into municipal corporation, you can log into civil records, you can log into your transport and everything. So that is going to help people, and then such citizen centric services helps to really achieve the intent of a smart city.
Thank you. So that's an interesting one. I mean, I guess government of India has a big task ahead of putting it all together. One of the thoughts that came to my mind was the underlying motto of a smart city or a sustainable city is all about safety, security, and well-being of people. Parag, this question is for you. From a well-being perspective of the citizens, how does lighting play into all of this?
Thanks, Srini. I tell you, smart cities, if you look at in India today, almost as per 2011 census, there are 53 towns in India which are more than 1 million. It's going to be, by 2030, it is going to be more than 87 towns. And the population influx from rural to urban is almost like 40% of the population of India will be in the urban markets. So the point here is that it's a huge opportunity in front of us to unlock the potential of these urban towns, and you call it smart city or whatever, but this is an opportunity that can create a lot of opportunities for economical growth, which will be very sustainable and all. And of course, in the middle of it is obviously is a technology. Now, like you spoke about lighting. Lighting could be a very important part, whether it is like, commercial accessibility, transportation, education, healthcare, all these ingredients of, livability index of a smart city, everywhere lighting can play a role. I'll start with a very simple example of light which we see every day is the street light, for example. So earlier, street light in a town would be like what? It is like either the street is illuminated or it is not. But then when it is illuminated, sometimes there is nobody on the street. So I mean, it's a waste of energy. Like Colonel Rohit already spoke about that. Lighting contribute almost 15% of the, consume 15% of the energy overall. So I mean, it's a very large part of the energy consumption also. And maybe I'll touch upon on the use of renewable energy for lighting as well. But when you look at the street lighting today, because of this technology and all of these things, now light source can connect, process, and transmit data. So what had happened, now you can program lights, and when nobody is walking, the light will be at a 20% off level and will not be optimal, will not be like full glow. And when somebody walks on the street or a vehicle comes in, the lighting sense it, and then it becomes like the light source sense it, and then it's an intelligent source, and it talks to each other, and then the light starts showing up as per the requirement of the street. So that's that helps, one, in energy consumption and less energy consumption. Secondly, in the maintenance of the city, like these light points, since they can transmit light, and you can sit at one place and can monitor the light sources. There is no need to go to every light source and find out. They will transmit signal, and you can see that which light source is not working. So there are very interesting things, Srini. One more thing, like before I come back to your question of human-centric light, there is also another thing which is coming up for smart city point of view, which is like lighting poles. And these poles, we call them smart pole, and they can help in many things which is related to smart city. Like, in a smart city, every 1 kilometer, you should know what is the AQI index. These are some definitions. Now, a smart pole can give you that index at every signal. It is a possibility if you use a smart pole in lighting. You can have a e-bike outlet. You can charge. A charger can be there in that smart pole. Noise detection can be done. People counting can happen. Then also, you can also look at visual surveillance. Can have an emergency button. So there are so many things you can do because now the data can process and it can reach out to various places. So this is one aspect of light. Another thing which is indoor, Srini, coming back to your question on the human-centric side. In today's time, people spend so much of time indoor, and you hardly have exposure to sunlight and all, and obviously it has an impact on our overall well-being. It creates anxiety, it disturbs sleeping disorders, sleeping pattern, and then the vitamin D loss and all of that. So many related issues is coming up. But this human-centric light is almost like a sunlight, very close to sunlight, and it can be programmed in a way that it will provide you almost similar kind of lighting, which which matches with your circadian rhythm and ensure that you didn't have that anxiety, and the overall productivity of the people in a way goes up. One more very interesting side of the lighting part, which lighting can contribute to the smart city is the every city has some identity. For example, there are monuments like India Gate today in Delhi, for example, is a identity of the city, right? Recently, Havels also did like Humayun Tomb. This is a monument which we started lighting up. And what you can do, you can create a very dramatic impact, which creates an overall sense of well-being among the citizens of the citizen of the city, and they start identifying themselves with those monuments. And that in the night, we call it night architecture. People can go visit a lot of commercial activities can come up around them. Even cities like in some part of the country like Rajasthan, where the weather is very extreme at times, and people from like Europe and all tourists comes and they don't visit those places in the afternoon, or it becomes very challenging for them. But if you create the same impression in the night, maybe the other more dramatic way of taking them closer to history, then what will happen? They can visit the same places in the night as well. And using this connected lighting and everything, you can create a lot of interesting scenarios there as well. So what I'm trying to say that, of course, indoor, outdoor, and of course, in terms of all aspects of places, I think lighting can play a very important role. But I also agree, somewhere Sudhakar also mentioned that people should also be little aware about how you use these facilities. So obviously, and that applies to everything, including lighting, that overall awareness about making the city livable should also be there. So that's from my side, Sharif, for lighting.
Interesting perspective from a well-being standpoint. So one of the biggest challenges this country, or for that matter, global city space, is mobility, transportation. The transportation woes of every country is something that all of us are dealing with. So this question is for you, Palash. You are a subject matter expert on e-mobility. How does e-mobility come into play in defining the sustainable living cities that we're talking about? What do we need to do? What does India need to do? What should be the next steps for us as a country from an e-mobility standpoint?
Sure. Thank you, Srini. Can you hear me? Am I clear?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Nija and friends from FICCI and my co-panelists and anybody else that's listening in. And I'm very happy to talk about transportation and what that does for a smart city. But just let me spend a couple of minutes answering your original question when you started out about what we believe smart cities are and should be. And at least in my mind, smart city is all about the people in it. And any activity that we do towards smart city, and I'm sure all of us on the panel today will agree that all the efforts essentially has to go towards improving the human condition, right? Whether it's solid waste management, water management, transportation, connectivity. At the end of the day, we are trying to make our cities more livable for the inhabitants in it. And sometimes we will need technology, but other times technology may or may not be a solution. And I could give you multiple examples. And just take the example of Delhi. For those of us who grew up in Delhi, 30 years back, Delhi was a much more or much less technology enabled, but obviously a much better or much more livable city at that time. And that has just to do with congestion and pollution and others. Even today, if you go to, I know Colonel is with us, if you go to any of the army cantonments, they may not be technologically enabled in the sense of the technology that we are talking about. But whenever you go there, you get a sense of peace. The way they have organized the cities, the operating procedures out there, the maintenance, just the behavior. So with the different ways of addressing the smart city opportunity, if you will. Now, coming to transportation, now smart city transportation is a key building block. And let me just give you a few data points. Again, in terms of large cities, today commuters spend over 1.5 hours on an average traveling between their homes and their places of work. 4 out of 10 most congested cities in terms of transportation today are in India. And New Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, those of us who live in these cities experience it on a daily basis. India is adding about 1 million people to its cities every month. 1 million people to its cities every month. This is one of the largest urban migrations in the history of mankind. So obviously the problem is not going away. We are just adding to the problem. And what all of this does, the traffic congestions in large cities, is that it causes colossal damage, colossal loss to the country in three ways. Number one, obviously, there is loss of productivity. People get stuck in traffic. You're spending 1.5 to 2 hours of your good time every day commuting between places of work and home. There's a productivity loss. Second is the environmental impact, right? The pollution that's created and the subsequent health impact that pollution has. So that's the second impact. And third, obviously, you're burning fossil fuel, you're importing fossil fuel, it's a burden on your exchequer. So commercially also, it's not a very good thing to have congestion in the cities. What we need today, frankly, is desperately we need a mobility solution that is not only sustainable, but also convenient, safe, and obviously cost effective at the same time. Now, the best candidate that fits this bill right now using current technology is obviously remote working. And over the last 1 year, if there's been any good side of COVID, it's been the effect that it has had on remote working. And most of the industries, in some fashion or the other, have realized that at least parts of their organization, if not the entire organization, can work remotely from home and address many of the technology-enabled activities, remotely. They don't need to commute, or they don't need to commute every day at least. So that's the first part. I mean, if there's technology that we can develop and we can proliferate, which reduces the need to travel. That obviously is the first choice, where you eliminate the need at the source itself. Now, that obviously will work for technology-enabled services, but there's a vast majority of people that it will not work for. And then what's the solution for that? And again, in the current context, with the current technology, the best thing that comes to mind is shared electric mobility and mass rapid transport. And again, a case in point is the Delhi metro system. Wonderful world-class system. It moves about 3 million people every day, taking hundreds of thousands of vehicles off the road, saving millions of tons of carbon emissions every day. So that is a wonderful success story that we have in Delhi. I know the metro system success is causing other cities to look actively onto it, and other cities are coming up with their own metro systems, and we are seeing mass rapid transport around the world, which is absolutely the right way to go: electric, shared, mass rapid transport. Now, two other things that we absolutely must do, and that's an area that my company works in. we realized about 5 years back when we set up this company was that while the governments spend a lot of money, invest a lot of money in large-scale mass mobility services like the local trains or the metro systems, the first mile and the last mile typically is unfortunately neglected, and therefore it falls in the hands of unorganized players, which cause it largely to become not the most efficient. So you'll see lack of compliance, you'll see safety issues out there. The drivers won't have licenses, you'll have rickety vehicles that don't meet the compliance norms. The first mile, you'll have price gouging. So while the metro system is great, people are dissuaded to go to the metro because of the first mile connectivity and the last mile connectivity. So if you have seamless end-to-end connectivity on electric vehicles, again shared, then you can persuade a lot of people to stop using their personal mobility systems. And that's where companies like us, first and last mile connectivity, world-class app-based, all-electric digital transactions, a whole bunch of things inside the vehicle, and it addresses all of those four things that I mentioned, which is it's sustainable, it's convenient, it's safe, and it's affordable. So that's one thing that all of us, at least in the transportation segment within the smart cities, we are focusing on. How do you create effective last mile connectivity? Second piece is, again, this came, another good impact of COVID was that a lot of people have started ordering widgets at home. Earlier, only a very small portion of the population used to order food at home. That was the experience. But now, over the last 1 year, I'm sure all of us during the last year have ordered multiple things from companies like Flipkart and Amazon and Big Basket and others. So home delivery as a sector is becoming very, very large. It's scaling up very fast. And there is a huge opportunity to move away from internal combustion engines in the delivery, transportation, or commercial vehicle segment. And that's the next opportunity for us in smart cities, where we remove the hydrocarbon burning vehicles and bring in electric mobility. And the last one is in the metro systems also, what we are trying to do is upgrade that system so that right now the metro is an excellent mass mover. But if you really need to take out the big cars off the roads, each one of us, I'm sure, is driving a big car and an SUV or something. And if you need this section of the population to move away from the roads, where the largest impact in terms of moving the vehicles out, four-wheelers, personal mobility out is concerned, then you need certain sections of the metro to be upgraded so that it appeals to the individual car owners also. So those are some of the changes that we are currently working on in smart cities. And then going forward, again, it's a chicken and egg thing. I mean, do the vehicles come first, or does the infrastructure come first? I know in the Western countries, the electrification of mobility has started at the high end. The Teslas of the world, the $100,000 vehicles, the $70,000 vehicle, then the $30,000 vehicle. In India, we have actually gone grounds up. So we are electrifying the public mobility fleets, the commercial fleets, at the lowest level, the two-wheelers, the three-wheelers, 70,000 rupees, 120,000 rupees vehicles. And if we can create enough of electric vehicles at that level, it'll essentially set up your charging and swapping infrastructure around the city, which eventually the private players can tap into. So that's the roadmap, at least that we see for the next 4 to 5 years. People might question that, look, ultimately you're driving an electric vehicle, but the power is still generated by thermal power and all of that. Those are valid arguments, but what people miss out there is that while the power is still generated thermally, it's generated remotely. So you actually don't get to see the gases within the city. They're off city limits. You can create green zones around that. And the second piece is that at that scale, the thermal efficiency, the generation efficiency is much better than if you were to burn fuel in individual combustion engines around the city. So electric mobility is essentially what we are betting our money on over the next 5 to 7 years. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It actually is an eye opener because you touched upon pandemic at least a couple of times. So my question is now going to be, and I'm going to throw this question to all of you, one after the other. All our cities, I guess, across all the cities across the world faced the pandemic. We had lockdowns, we had a bunch of other issues, and I hope the vaccination, does solve the current problem, but it does not solve the future problem. I mean, there could be future pandemics. I mean, how does the smart, sustainable cities that we want to build? How do we address the future pandemic issues? I mean, I don't know whether it's from a technology standpoint. I'm just posing a very general question here, and I'll start with Madhukar. You, what would, and then I will go over to you, Colonel, next. What do you think should be the cities that need to be built, or what is the forethought that people need to have when they are planning for these sustainable, livable cities for the citizens in the future from a pandemic perspective? I mean, the technology is one piece we talked about, renewable energy, but from a pure pandemic perspective, Madhukar, what do you think we should be doing?
Yeah, thank you. So the again, I'm coming to the point that we have to see the pain area of the respective city, because every city has a different area of interest and area of pain, and then the most common is solid waste management, because even in pandemic days there was a lot of challenge how to clean and how to ensure that solid waste management is effectively managed, because that was posing a lot of challenge. Number one. Number two is that you have to see that connectivity part, like how effective and how activity, so that people can live in their respective places, and then they can remain connected, and then they can utilize all the citizen centric services. So first part is that you have to look at the major pain area of solid waste management, and then the affordability and availability of water, power, and then all these things. And I would like to mention one thing, like a smart meter. I mean, I was wanted to tell when uh, this electricity was discussed. Like if you go for a smart meter, and then where you make every meter as a smart, and then enable individual citizen and individual consumer to monitor their own trend of power consumption. So this is already implemented in India. Like as L&T, we are doing a smart meter for about 40 lakhs in Uttar Pradesh and 10 lakhs in Haryana, where we are converting all meter into a smart meter. And the meter is that meter reading is taken every 15 minutes, and then it is processed in MDM, and then through that mobile application, it is available to the individual consumer, and then consumer can see what is the daily usage, and then they can control, or they can also monitor their consumption pattern. And also there is a trend which is going from postpaid to prepaid meters. So a lot of meters are getting converted to prepaid, which is then improving the revenue performance of the discoms, as well as it is also alerting consumer, and they are restricting to whatever they can afford. So, and then the third part is that your transportation system, which is required to be improved, and Palas was talking about that at a great length. So these are the area I think we shall focus, so that citizen can get more and more effective services from the smart city perspective.
Okay. Colonel, your thoughts on what do we need to do from a pandemic perspective, from a sustainable and
So the first thing is that we need to have a sort of a phasing of what we want to do. So my first thing would be that we need to analyze that what exactly has happened during the current experience of the pandemic. That analysis in each sector, whether it's tourism, medical, military functioning, or maybe the corporate sector. So what has happened? How has it affected us? And how we have overcome. So in my particular sector, being military, we could foresee this pandemic lockdown maybe a month earlier than the others. And we did the military thing of stocking those places of our plants where we have brigading plants and all for 3 months with medical wear, with rations, with people. Got some porta cabins to put some labor there to make it function. So these experiences are with everybody across. Second is like our experience has been through this pandemic. There are certain sectors which have opened up beautifully, and they have conformed to the new normal, right? The new normal being that education sector. Imagine the colleges and schools have functioned so beautifully and well. Imagine the way we are conducting this webinar. So these things, and even if you say edutainment has taken off. The workplaces have changed the concept. The meeting places have changed the concept. Shopping has changed the concept. The services sector has grown itself in multiple forms. They have adapted. So while these 3, 4 sectors have adapted, we need to prioritize what needs to be done ahead. And in my thinking, what lessons come out, and I can just randomly tell you, in 2024, you're going to have elections. So if you are prepared with the e-voting infrastructure and you plan now in a better way, so you will not have a fiasco like USA. Handling of, say, the hoax news, cyber criminals, smart consideration units, confinement wards, blockchain-empowered resident, following framework, contact-free sanitation and waste management. Even in training, online training and assessment framework, a lot of courses are being run by CII, FICCI, and everybody else. So how do you do that online training and get it done? No contact inspection of patients, modified supply chains. Now, I'll tell you beautifully what Mr. Chaudhary was covering earlier was about electric vehicles. In a city like Jess, if you ever visit there, I was last posted there was the December military station. I designed the smart city concept for that military station. The first things we did was, what we could do then was get e-rickshaws. The e-rickshaws was such a good thing and blessing that right from the point where the bus put my man down on the gate till his unit, we would take him through the e-rickshaw. And Jaisalmer cantonment has got a 40-kilometer radius, circumference around it. So the largest cantonment in Asia. And for that, this small solution helped so much of pollution to go off. We got the supply chain to the, so there were 4 or 5 colonies, officers' colonies, other rank colonies, and whatever you may have. So we said, okay, we will get the essentials, the vegetables, the canteen facilities to your doorstep. And there was no pandemic then. We tried to have these setups made there to reduce the pollution effect, to reduce the fossil fuel consumption by the military and such like, considerations. But going forward, right now, an Amazon delivers to your home. There may be a case in point for a local Kirana shop to tomorrow have one vehicle, which is e-vehicle, and he can give a list around his surrounding that tomorrow I'll visit RK Puram number 1, number 2, like that. I'll go to Vasant Vihar the next day. So he can have a schedule and people will anticipate and give him the demand. So these supply chains are going to have a transition and a shift. Wireless review of municipal infringement is the next need, which the pandemic has thrown upon us. And contactless delivery of products and food items, like somebody else also said. So once you do all this prioritization, you need the expertise. And here my point was, before we have that world war on water, I wanted to say that, we are a coastal country. And there is a lot of this government is doing for this use of seawater with Israel and other people. It is a requirement and a mandatory requirement for our country to invest in research and development as a concept. So whether you give it a money to FICCI to or you have committees made, you have to invest in a lot of R&D in across the spectrum of a smart city development in all aspects, because you have to be abreast with the technology. You have to be abreast with the timelines which you are taking for yourself to transition into that particular domain that time. And last but not the least, the fourth aspect which I have to communicate is supervise. So once you've done the analysis, prioritization, got the expertise, there is a degree of supervision required. And with the population of 1.3 billion growing every day by the minute, I think supervision is something which is key. We have all kinds of systems. You see the mobility sector today in Delhi. You cross a speed limit, the challan comes depending on the class of vehicle you're driving. So these are smart solutions, but still they require supervision. So as long as our country is not fully educated and aware, and people are, like Japanese, so well disciplined, the supervision itself will also have to have a quantum, effect in terms of manpower deployed for supervision, money deployed, resources, SOPs made, like standard operating procedures. And I think there it comes is the awareness campaign. So as you develop and go through the pandemic, you have to draw your lessons. And if you go to my Twitter handle, long time before we broke this lockdown and had normalcy, I was just jotting down points on a thread which came to my mind in each sector, from tourism to energy to electric vehicle to everything I could think of as a layman. So if you could pick up those threads, and if somebody could dwell as an expert on those threads, I think that's the way forward. So all the people who are on the panel today and FICCI per se are a repository of a lot of experiences in this pandemic. What has gone wrong, what you could correct, and what you could not, and what needs to change and how it needs to change. So I think that is the way forward in the pandemic experience. And I'm quite sure India has done beautifully well. People may say anything, on the media channels which I go to, but the point is we have done extremely well. We have kept the mortality rate low. We have functioned through it. In fact, after the lockdown was announced, my company could, within 3 days, a clearance from MNRE to operate as essential service to support the pharma industry in terms of briquette supply and pellet supply for running their furnaces and boilers. So that is the kind of proactiveness which our country has, the zeal which we have to perform. And that should count the largest. The zeal which we have today, also on the panel, you saw a lot of people have got a lot of ideas. So ideation is something which needs to take us forward. And let me just close by saying, my goal for a smart city, people had talked about it earlier, is life. And what is life in my thinking is L for livable in safety and convenience, I is for inclusive, F is for futuristic and vibrant, and E is for edutainment, economic prosperity, and environmental friendliness. I can dwell upon these four aspects on a later date, probably today we are running short of time. But if you are focused towards the people and you take this adage of life, which I wanted to enunciate actually, you will find that you can do a lot more in the smart cities. Water problem is a life problem. The grains problem, the storage problem is a life problem. Smart solutions, you can't make everything like a Indira Gandhi Airport storage center where you can store every food grain in the country today. We are not there. I can't pump in 5% of my GDP into the defense sector. We have 1.3 billion mouths to feed. So once you see this,
in the interest of time, I had a couple of more questions. And Palash, this one is for you. And one important thought that came to my mind when you talked about e-mobility and all of that stuff is, do we look at private partnerships for doing this private public, or what kind of models do you think will work in the e-mobility platform? And how do we move forward from that perspective? And another question, which again stems from the fact that our biggest problem in transportation today are the kind of roads that we have. How do we ensure are there any smart alternatives for this to ensure the way we lay the roads differently? Or again, I don't have the answers, but I'm looking for answers from you in terms of these two. Is private public the way forward? And what smart solutions can we adopt for laying the roads? Palash, you're on mute. You're on mute. No, you're still on mute, Palash. You're on mute. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah. No, you're again muted yourself.
Is this better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so let me happy to answer those two questions. Public-private partnership is absolutely the right way to go forward. Government can do two things. One is enable the policy framework. In certain cases, provide incentive schemes to kickstart some of these sunrise industries, and then provide the basic trunk infrastructure in terms of providing the power, the energy, and so on. But at the end of the day, public investments will have to be supported by private investments. And the good thing is that electric mobility is at today's prices also. And I'm sure as time goes on, as we reach scale, the enabling prices, which is largely dependent on lithium batteries today, about 40 to 45% of an electric vehicle today is lithium battery. Those prices will continue to come down. But even today, commercial models are available which are commercially viable. So people who are investing money in electric mobility, can rest assured that these are absolutely viable models. We are running large fleets of over 1,500 vehicles, and we see commercial success. So public-private partnership, in my mind, is absolutely the right way to go. As far as roads are concerned, look, this is something where a lot of research has already been done. All we need to do is, go to other cities in the world, go to other countries which have better infrastructure, and take some of their best practices. And this does not need any reinvention. If you go to Singapore, if you go to the US, if you go to Germany, if you go to Japan, their infrastructure catering to various sections of mobility, whether it's rapid transport, whether it's personal four-wheelers, two-wheelers, cycles, pedestrians, especially enabled people, their infrastructure, their road infrastructure is carefully thought out to cater to all of those segments. So this is not something that requires any new research. All we need to do is be cognizant and copy best practices from around the world. It already exists. So not too worried about that. Just before I end, just wanted to let Colonel know that your example of Jaisalmer is something I would really like to delve on a little more. It's a wonderful experience, and hopefully we'll be able to connect offline. There's a large opportunity there that I see. Thank you for sharing that example.
So one, I know Nirja is smiling. Nirja, I'll stick to the time. I just had one question. We talk about large cities, the entire migrant population moving to the cities to live. Uh, what do you think we should be doing from the rural India perspective? Because if we continue to grow only the large cities, like Mumbai, Bangalore, whatever, the rural India, there will always be migration from there. So to truly make the country integrated into a smart country, is there something that we should do or we should think as a country from a rural India perspective, especially tier 3 towns? What are the things we should do? And I think, this is something, Deepak, I'd like you to give us some insight on that before I end the session. So what are your thoughts, Deepak, on this?
Srini, you are very right. I mean, the way the migration is happening, it's in order to provide for the people is like building a new Mumbai every year for the next 20 years. You can imagine the amount of money, human capital, etc., which is resources. Second is, why don't we make the rural towns smart? Actually, we actually did a project to make a city of 250,000 people with a 150-year-old municipality. And a typical, you can imagine the typical old Indian towns and cities. There's no drainage system. There's no proper water distribution systems. Energy is missing. I mean, you have wires hanging all the time. You can imagine the typical old cities. And we did a project with the government, along with a consortium of private companies, to create a concept to make the whole city smart. So, I mean, we can create a smart city, a smart town based on the lines of the 100 Smart City mission. And this model actually had also a PPP element. It was involved in that. A concession agreement to run the whole city and infrastructure for 10 years, because we understand the capacity or the capability in the smart handle these latest technologies and so on and so forth. I mean, so the models are available, which address a lot of things. The government was also very proactive in the state of enabling mechanisms. I mean, you need a lot of enabling mechanisms in order to do something like that. A separate procurement method was also developed, framework newly developed for this. So there has been a good model. Probably, I hope, hopefully it gets interest in other states. It gets carried on, but it is possible to do it, and then you can attract investments once something is. Once you have investments, you create jobs for people, and people tend to stay. Some of the people will tend to stay. I can't say all, and then rather than move, but the quality of life, employment, education, health, everything, probably you're upgrading in that town. Of course, the perspective is long. It takes a 3 years to 5 years to 10 years perspective. But yes, it is doable actually. And I'm sure this is also a way to go forward. We need to do this. We also need to keep on building new Mumbais every year for the next few years as well. And it's a balance of both. And while doing this, we need to ensure that we are resilient. We take care of all. We have local, right size, right fit Indian solutions to meet all our problems. I think there are enough companies who develop the solutions available to do this. And overall, as an act, I'm very confident that we can have a better urban future or urban transformation in India going forward.
You're on mute. Srini, you're on mute.
Sorry, Ashish, Parag, any last thoughts on this? How do we, integrate whole of India, especially tier 2 and tier 3 towns? So Ashish, if you can go first, and then Parag.
Sure, I have just a couple of comments after Ashish is done.
Sure, Palash.
Yeah, just a quick one. As rightly touched by Deepak, affordability is a key, and service model based solutioning is important aspect if we want to go to tier 2, tier 3 and villages as well. Because having solutions which are the capex heavy and huge investment required on technology is not going to solve the purpose. And another important aspect is bring in automation as much as possible, so that human intervention required to achieve some of these goals is minimal.
Parag, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, of course. I think infrastructure development, creating job in rural, for example, like transportation, for example, if people can travel to nearby city, come back. Also, the digitalization. There are many companies I've seen, especially in IT sector recently. They said there is no need to come to the urban cities because you can still work from smaller city or rural places, and you can still do your job. So maybe more digitalization and improvement in infrastructure. Probably infrastructure is not only roads and transport. There is also like schools, uh, other facilities has to move into those cities also. In fact, it is also moving. If you look at today, India's growth is far more than coming from rural and semi-urban market than in comparison to urban markets. So that maybe in a slower speed, but it's happening.
Okay, so I work with a large corporates across India and global corporates from US and UK and Europe, and all of them now are allowing their employees to work from anywhere. That's the new concept. It's no longer work from home; it's work from anywhere. So, Palash, over to you for the last few comments, and then I will do a wrap the session.
Well, I'm actually okay because Parag mentioned exactly the same things that I was going to mention, which is when you look at the root cause that's driving this migration from rural to urban settings, it's essentially the opportunities that a city gives. And your question is probably the most important one of this session, which is how do we decongest and decentralize these cities? Because we just can't take on more people in five or six metros that we have created over the last 50 years. And the way to do that is either through technology, remotely doing things, everything from telemedicine to IT-enabled services to technology-enabled education, as well as laying out the infrastructure pipeline, whether it's metro stations going from Delhi to Manesar, or 8-lane highways that's making it easier for us to travel from Noida to Agra in 2 hours. Infrastructure and technology is going to be the two drivers that will decongest our cities going forward.
Yes, Madhukar.
So last only one comment, like the Digital India program of government, which is basically having vision to connect all the rural pocket of India, and which if it is expedited with the public-private partnership and with all the technologies coming on AI based, that will definitely bring out the concept of, creating more and more, not exactly smart city, but a smart township, and to achieve the intent. Yeah, that's the last comment I wanted to make.
Right. Okay. I'm going to do a wrap. Neerja, thank you for giving us an opportunity, getting such esteemed panelists on this discussion. Thank you, each one of you, for giving your insights on livable and sustainable cities. And thank you, FICCI, for getting it organized. And thank you, Neerja, for giving me an opportunity to moderate this event. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Since it's a FICCI conference, I had the last word.
Yes, you do.
Well, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for this high on energy session. And what made it more interesting was the array of subjects so beautifully intertwined by a moderator. Shri always thanked you, so I had to thank you.
Thank you.
At the end of the program. Thank you so much. With this, we come to end of this summit. Thank you all the participants who are listening to us. Thank you participants for the award. Congratulations to the winner. Until we meet again. See you.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Palash.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Shini. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.